So typically we would create the, 30 divisions, whatever divisions that we have, all these subfolders here in this current specs folder that we will extract from that initial 600-page document.
So we'll go ahead and open up that document and create our bookmarks. Now the bookmarks are going to be the way that we extract to separate this out. So the first page is always, usually always the title page, the cover sheet that will be our table of contents. So we're going to go ahead and create bookmarks, and we're going to use the page region to do that. And if there's any engineers or architects here, this is where we're asking your help. These are not always standard, so we have to pad our selections because multiple people work on the spec sheets. So the item down at the bottom, our title and our spec sheet number are not consistently in the same place, but so we padded a little bit to make up for it. So we'll draw a box around the spec sheet number, and then put an underscore, and then do the, add the second piece, which is the title, and we'll pad that a little bit because it could be up a little bit higher or down a little bit or over a little bit. And then say okay. And then we'll create our bookmarks. And you'll see that they should all be consistent. We'll go and manually do the couple of them, but it beats having to go and create a bookmark every single time. This is an automated way. So we look for the dashes and see if those can be deleted because we don't need the blank sheets. And we'll rename the one, like the top one is table of contents or index. And we'll look for any spaces, any hyphens that were picked up. Because we don't need the page numbers, we just need the names. So if you're working with 600 pages, this can get a little bit tedious, but it sure saves a lot of time. And if they're not all named the same, they will not extract together. So that's very important that all the pages of the same spec section are named the same. And we'll So now we're going to split this document up under document, it's split document, and we're going to use the top level bookmarks to do this. And that will group all of the ones with the same bookmark name together and create a new document off of those. So we're going to have each section its own document by doing this. So if you can see here, it is created a, oh, we did, what's that happened?
And then what we do, we have to name it. So it's
Oh, you changed the file name? A couple of bookmarks. And then file name we don't have. Which section? We're going to use the bookmark name, right? So we choose that bookmark name under subjects. Under subjects. We use the bookmark name for our, to split it out with as our file name when we extract the pages. So see how we extracted out each section together? So now we can move them into the appropriate folder. We put all the electrical together, all of the mechanical, all of the architecture together. This section is just electrical, I believe. But if we had 609 pages, we'd have a lot more sections. We're just doing electrical.
And you're copying, not moving, right?
We are moving them.
You're moving.
We create a subfolder for every single section. So all the electrical will be moved into the electrical section. All of the mechanical will be moved into the mechanical section. And then,
run the batch.
yeah, now we've got to do the batch link to get the table of contents updated. Then we run a batch link, so as our cover pages, so we can just click on a hyperlink on the table of contents to pull open the document that we want to see. So, so we're adding in our new documents. Did you copy the table of contents up too?
Yeah.
Okay. And we are using first from start using the underscore and okay and generate. And then we're going to search through there to see if there's anything that doesn't match up. So we're matching the number from the table of contents with the file name so that we can batch link those and create our hyperlinks.
So you're creating a batch link that goes to each spec section rather than the folder like electrical?
Yeah, and it will also go inside your spec sections too and put hyperlinks to other spec sections that are referenced as well. So it found 11 hyperlinks here. So we open up our table of contents. You can see that it will create all of our hyperlinks to all of our spec sections. So we can, instead of browsing for it, we can just go pull it up from the table of contents. Do we have an example where it created a hyperlink in another? I don't know if we have an example, but it will create them within the spec sections as well. Anybody have any questions on that? All right. The second part of our presentation is how we update our drawings, doing the slip sheeting. Now we're going to have to switch back to 2017. There's a bug in 2018 that if you've already ran a back slip sheet once on it and you try to do it again, it's gonna air out and not do it. So that fix is coming in February or March. So we're gonna do that presentation on 2017 since there's not, that one's working. So we're gonna pull a ASI up that has some updates to our drawings. So we get our ASI in, and we need that to be a quick update. If we update it on Bluebeam, the field users can get it real fast. They can pull it up on their iPads because we're all syncing to our studio server. So you want to go through that?
Yeah, so on this ASI, just for time's sake, I'm just gonna batch slip architectural drawings. So like Vanessa said, I'm gonna check it out. And then within these pages, they have to be labeled, the document number and title. So I have to manually create new page labels. So here's where I'll do that same setup where I'll select the page region, start with the number. And I'll add in whatever the title is. Typically, some of them have multiple lines, so I just have to be careful. Careful how I pick that space. Don't want to get on any other lines. And I'll view it, make sure it looks correct. And then for this one, since it's ASI 01, I'll put ASI 01 at the end. I'll press OK, and then I want to do it for all pages.
Did you have a space in ASI 01 or just ASI 01?
I put a space in between. The big thing with the page labeling that we found out is we use that underscore to split up everything. It seems like that's the best symbol to use rather than a dash or anything else. Underscore is like the best one that works. And in some cases, if the PDF, like for example, it may not read all these numbers or titles. So in some cases, if it's a lot, I'll run that OCR and try to get the PDF to read the text. But if not, if it's just a few couple, I'll clean them up and just manually put them in. So I'll go through typically like I mentioned and just double check, make sure all the names are right. If there's anything wrong with it, change it. Like I mentioned, I'll just do the architectural drawings today. So far everything looks pretty good here, just by a quick glance. So after that, I'll do file, batch, slip sheet. And I add in, for this case, I'll just add in the architectural folder. Typically, we have multiple, different scopes that we'll add in the entire folder of all of the current sheets. So I'll just select the architectural folder, and then the revised ones, I'll add in just the So since I've already had the ASI open, I'll just add in the open file. And for this case, we've been using manual correlation and manually matching them. It seems to be the best solution right now to make sure that they match correctly, make sure that the updated version is going to that drawing correctly. So here I'll go through and pick the right drawing. I want to make sure it's the first page. If there's already been previous revisions, sometimes we've had addenda or other ASI already in there, you want to make sure that it's that first page so it goes on top of that, so your previous revisions will be behind it.
This is extremely helpful so that we bring over all of our hyperlinks and markups from the previous versions so we don't have to redraw them every time. So that's the benefit of using this, this function.
Our process has kind of evolved over time also. We used to just manually insert the new sheet on top of the old sheet, but as Vanessa just mentioned, when you do that, you lose all previous highlights or anything you had done on the previous version. So Slipsheet is really helpful because it pulls all of those markups to the top most current level. So we found that was a big incentive to use Slipsheet, where at first we were kind of leery because we weren't really sure how that process worked. But it really does have a big benefit.
So after I've matched those architectural ones, I want to make sure that this is changed to insert revised pages before the current pages. Obviously you want those first, and then I make sure these are checked.
Did we do that last option, the flatten?
Yeah. And I'll check it in. This is just showing the pages that I didn't match, and the ones that are slip sheeted. So I'll go and double check. After I do this, I go back to the ASI and verify that the drawings that I did match, I'll go through and double check that they're all in there correctly. So if we go to AD1 200, should have that first drawing here. As you can see, sometimes they've deleted different drawing references, so I would check this out and delete it, clean it up, and then I make sure that the previous revision here has that superseded stamp on top of it. So I would go through the rest of these architectural ones and just do the same thing. And cleanup of hyperlinks. Usually it's pretty minimal. We don't have to do a lot of cleanup. But yeah, that's it.
So yeah, thanks, T1. I was hoping, would you guys mind talking about how many, like, I think your story is really interesting with how many iPads you use in the field and how many you manage. Can you just tell everybody about that? Or if you don't feel comfortable, it's okay.
No, it's okay. Go
Do
ahead.
you know the number?
No, we have construction, we probably have 300 or 400 in construction now, iPads. So all the foremen have iPads with the Bluebeam app on it, and we also have check them out as a tool as well for the larger jobs. And that way they don't have to carry the plans around with them. They can just take their iPad with them and do all of their work. So it's part of our electronic document management push that we're going for.
And just to clarify, over on the right-hand side of the screen here, that is what the field users are seeing on their iPads essentially. So our project managers don't have iPads, but they can view the same information that the field has on their iPads in the studio window over on the side. So Nathan ran through, when he did the slip sheeting, you'll notice with the plans, we extract every sheet individually and link them to the cover sheet and then replace sheets as they're reissued. Plans we've been doing for years, it's pretty simple because every sheet is just an individual document, so you just extract them one by one. The specs that he went through first was kind of a second phase that we came up with, because with the spec section, one section could be 5 pages, the next one's 12, the next one's 22, so you couldn't just go through and extract them all individually. Initially, we were doing manual, like we'd go through and pick the pages we wanted extracted, and then one of our project coordinators learned about the extracting by using the bookmarks. So that was a big deal when we figured that out, because by doing that auto label, you can get the extracting to still work based on the bookmark. So that was, this has evolved. We've been, how many years?
Since 2015.
Since 2015 we started, and every time we go to the Bluebeam conference, we learn something new, and we come back and kind of tweak our process and retrain our pool of people that do these updates. But it's been a work in progress for sure, with a lot of people contributing ideas and constantly trying to improve it.
So is this a drawing set, and if you're using a slip
We don't use a
sheet?
set because the set is not compatible on the iPad app. So we tried using sets at first because when we saw that was a really cool feature, but it's not compatible on the app, and they've stopped developing on the app, so it's never going to be an option on the app. So what we came up with was extracting all the sheets individually, running batch link, and having them all link up to the table of contents.
Okay,
And
so
once
is it
you-
one giant file?
No, they're all individual sheets. So we load in, Nathan, can you show the, in plans, on this one we don't have it. When we start a project, we take the original 300-page PDF that we receive on the project and we load it into a folder, we call it not updated. Then we have people that go in there, label it up, extract every sheet individually, move them into a folder by drawing section, and then batch link them to the table of contents. But once you're used to the process, to set up a new job, it might take a half hour. Like it's not, but like we spend days going through this, it's a quick process because a lot of it is automated. It all automatically happens on its own. So when you run batch link, first you do that auto labeling, and then anywhere throughout the drawings where it detects whatever's in front of the underscore is what it's looking for. So if it sees like A101, anywhere in the drawing, it automatically batches that to the appropriate page.
Before you extract all the drawings for?
No, we first we label, then we extract, then we put them in folders, then we run batch link.
Okay.
Because it's important, you can't move them after they're batch linked because you break all the hyperlinks.
So if you don't have internet out in the building, you still have access to the drawings, or you have to go back to the trailer?
You can work offline. So our system synchronizes every night at midnight. Our Sharepoint system synchronizes with our Bluebeam system, and it forces updates. Whatever we did in the office, it'll push it out at midnight. So our foremen know they have to make sure they're grabbing the most recent copy while they have a connection. And then they can take their iPad offline, so they can go down in the basement with no signal, and still the hyperlinks will work. It just isn't searching for the most current version at that point in the day.
So do they have to load all of the current documents offline, or do just the ones that they want? Because
Just the
iPad
ones
doesn't-
that they want.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if they need one that's not uploaded, then they have to go back.
Yeah.
If they're offline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of our iPads have cellular service, data.
Yeah, but sometimes in the middle of the building, you can't.
Right.
Yeah.
So for the most part, They do pretty good with
Yeah, I
it.
don't think we work offline very often.
Correct.
You guys are projects mostly in cities, right? I mean,
Not our remote
particularly.
offices. Like, we have a Wichita location where it is out in, like, you don't see humans for 2 hours.
Been there, done that, yes.
So is it really in Wichita then?
Well, it's near Wichita. We've been there.
can I ask, you have both mentioned about the automation a little bit, and I know Vanessa, you did a lot of programming with the developer to integrate the SharePoint. Can you just do a quick overview of what that, like when you start a project, you have this automation that causes it to
Yeah.
build a project for you.
Yeah, we kick off a workflow in SharePoint that automatically takes the project name and number and creates the project using Bluebeam's API calls. So it will create that, and we have standard folders that are created during that process, and it will sync over that data from SharePoint into the Studio project for us. And it will also build the daily logs, so they don't have to put out their name and job number on there. They can just go check it out and update their daily log for the day and check it back in. Same for the short interval plans. They can do their 2-week look ahead planning as well.
We're just gonna show real quick. I asked him to pull up our SharePoint site just so you can kind of see what this is communicating with. SharePoint is where our project managers work all day long and our project coordinators. There's a lot more information in SharePoint than what we push out to the field in Bluebeam. We only give them about 1/3 of the information that's in our SharePoint site. So this is that same job that we were looking at in Bluebeam. This is its actual home in SharePoint. And you can see there's a lot more, if Nathan scrolls down the left-hand side, there's a lot more info in here that we're not pushing out to the field because we try to just give them what they need and not make it as overwhelming. So any of them that have the little arrows, those are ones that the field can see. If they don't have an arrow by it, the field can't see that information on their iPad. But again, what's nice with this is the project managers go in and load an ASI or create an RFI. They don't have to email it to the field. It automatically moves at night. So I know in the past it's been a struggle, did you email that out to your foreman or give him a copy? Now you don't have to do that. You just create it or put it where it belongs, and it automatically goes out to the field if it's something we want to go out to the field.
Sarah, I remember that you said before the flip is true too, like if there's a safety problem, it automatically emails the office?
Yeah, so there's a synchronization that's working in both directions. So some documents originate in SharePoint and push out to Bluebeam. Those would be submittals, RFIs, ASIs, requests for proposals. We also have some documents that the field updates in Bluebeam on their iPads that sync back over to SharePoint. So examples of those are daily logs and short interval plans. They create them they fill them out on their iPad, and it moves the record copy back into SharePoint.
So when you say updates automatically in Bluebeam, you're talking Studio.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So can you actually go, in Bluebeam, can you pull up the daily logs? So part of our workflow that we have built into this, when we assign foreman to a project, when it goes through and does all those workflows and creates the Bluebeam Studio project, it automatically creates folders for each foreman where it generates daily logs for them every week. So we populate a week's worth of daily logs out in front of them. They just fill it out, and when they fill it out, it syncs back over to SharePoint without them having to send it to the office or do anything with it. What Jason was mentioning on the daily logs, we have a couple fields where if they check a box, it sends an alert to our safety department or to our project managers. So if there was a near miss or an accident, if there was damaged freight, it will automatically notify the project manager that night. Yeah, I can open that. See, at the bottom of our daily log, this is the spot Jason was talking about, where if they type anything in those fields, there's a workflow that will automatically email the people that need to know about it.
If there is damaged freight, can they upload a picture? And
Yeah.
does that pull?
Yep. So they can add a second page. On the iPad, you can add a second blank page and then take a picture with the iPad and insert it right in there.
Does that workflow through Bluebeam or is it through Share? I mean, is it,
It's,
how do you create?
it's off of our Bluebeam server. It's a program that our developers wrote, and using the Bluebeam developers APIs. And it's just using a web service to connect the two together and transfer the data.
How are you doing submittals and RFIs? Do you use the same workflow for that, or do you have an outside?
We built wizards, we call them, for each of those processes. It originates in SharePoint, so it's like the other project management programs you've seen. It's very similar. You create a new RFI, it gives you the next number. It pulls from a global address book to get the contacts, and then in the end, it generates a PDF that you would then email upstream. And then as soon as it creates that PDF, that night at midnight, it pushes that out to the field so they can see the pending version. And then once it's approved or answered, it moves into another folder and they can see the response. And then part of our process, the people who update drawings, they get an alert when there's a response, and they go and they cloud the drawing and link it back to that document.
You could use someone on site overhead-wise to maintain, make sure that
We actually have a pool of interns that we've trained and monitor what they're doing. Interns, project engineers. Nathan's our in-house expert. Yeah, it's usually interns are people we start with, and then project engineers, it's a task we like them to become familiar with, because eventually they'll outgrow it and pass it on to someone else. But I think it's helpful that they then really understand the process, and if something doesn't look right, they know how to fix it, or they have been involved with it.
What was your biggest obstacle in this whole process? Time, perspective, money?
Money. They tell me I can't keep spending money.
You've gone from one biggest obstacle just to the next one after this all these years.
Yeah, it's our SharePoint site has been a work in progress for 10 years. And our users will attest, when we first rolled it out, it was painful. And we had different programmers at the time. We've invested a lot in the system to customize it and to make it user-friendly. So I'd say, to me, the biggest obstacle has been just cost, because now we're to a point where it's pretty user-friendly, and it's kind of where we want it to be, but it's taken us a long time, a lot of money to get there. And I guess finding programmers that understand that can bridge the gap between their technical talk and what our users need to happen has been a bit of a challenge.
So I see you have schedule on there. You update your schedules on here and you just,
We upload PDFs. Typically, if we updated or created a project, we upload a PDF copy, because in Bluebeam app, you can't open projects. So everything we need to open, we have to put in PDF.
and somebody made the comment that they're not updating their app to work with sets. Why, if they create sets, why aren't they?
They're developing a new web-based client or app.
Yeah. So they're moving in a direction of the whole program being web-based. So those of us that have, is it local?
The studios,
Premise-based.
on-premise studios, yeah.
Yeah, so since we're on-premise, the whole direction, what we learned at the Bluebeam conference, it's all moving to web-based. So our platform is kind of something, they're kind of stopping development and they're moving all towards web-based. And with the web-based, there's a drawing functionality that's similar to like a plan grid. So since they're kind of pushing that and supporting that, they've decided they're not going to invest anymore in developing the app any further. Because we've been waiting for sets to be compatible for 5 years,
So have we.
hoping.
Yeah.
It's called Studio Drawings, right?
I
Yes.
think so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But what we found, the sets were our thought was we wanted to
It's a
use
lot
sets.
easier, yeah.
But once we become accustomed to this, and learning slip sheeting, that was a big deal because that made it similar functionality to a set. And the way we have it batch linked, it kind of acts like it's one document, even though it's one page that's easy to render on the iPad.
So actually,
And it still marks it superseded with the slip sheet
Slip sheet,
process.
yes. And the biggest benefit, like I said, is that the markups that you previously put on the drawing rise to the surface. Because before, we were manually inserting the new one on top, and then we lost all the RFI designations and links to submittals and everything else we had.
you have a handout that you went through those steps, so
We've created one.
can you email us? The batch
I'll
later.
double check, but just to throw out there, everything that we've learned process-wise, we've learned by watching the videos on the help site, or on the Bluebeam University. Like, this is all just self-taught, we just watched how-to videos and came up with the process. It's nothing, the only thing I guess that was not that way was the batching of the specs, which Laura learned at the conference.
The, you call it top level bookmarks. What's the significance of using that? What does that mean?
Well, and I wanted to clarify too, a lot of specs come with bookmarks already built in. If the specs already came with bookmarks, you can eliminate those first steps of going through and labeling everything. The top level bookmark just means when you have 15 pages, they're all going to have the same designation, spec section _ spec name. So what it's doing is it's looking for the top page 1 of that section, and then everything with that same designation gets extracted as a chunk. So that's where if one's 5 pages, one's 12, one's 22, it knows how many pages to pull and extract together. Because specs were challenging. When we didn't know how to do that, we would have to manually go and look, okay, page 1 through 7 is section 16201. You know, manually extract 5 pages. So it's telling you where to separate that extraction and how to break it.